Yo, public companies currently hold about 900,000 Bitcoin, and people are wondering if this has changed Bitcoin forever. There's a red hot debate happening right now on Twitter or X, depending on how you like to call it, claiming that Bitcoin cycles are over forever. And somebody coined the term the sailor cycle. So, what is everyone talking about? We're going to be breaking it down in just a sec, but people are basically making the case that the Bitcoin cycle is over, that the super cycle has started. And what is super cycle? If you're new to Bitcoin, if you've never heard of that before, it's essentially the theory that the era of the 70 to 80 to 60% market corrections after the traditional 4-year cycle are over. So we've heard this many times again. Every single cycle we hear about these super cycles, but this time could be different. So no more delay. Let's jump straight into what it is we're talking about. But before we do that, I do want to introduce our special guest today. We have Tina Blancho. Tina Blancho is the president and CEO of SAT123. We're going to be talking about what they do, what they're all about, reclaiming back your sovereignty during the culture segment. Really excited about that as well. But guys, let's jump straight into what we're talking about. So Brad Mills posted this very interesting comment, and it went semi-viral. And he's basically making the case Bitcoin cycles are over. The days of parabolic Bitcoin booms and devastating crashes are done. Bitcoin is inevitable, and we are at the beginning of what he calls the sailor cycle. Are you positioned for the next 100x in Bitcoin? The chasm has been crossed. Now, what was really interesting about this post, I saw it as well, is that there was so many different types of like emotions and reactions to it. So we're gonna kind of like do a breakdown on that. So we have to break down the charts. Of course, here are the traditional 4-year cycles where Bitcoin goes up and then it has its correction. Bitcoin goes up and it has its correction. Bitcoin goes up and it has its correction. Those traditionally are 3 green, 1 red. What does that mean? So there's 3 green years and then there's 1 red year. He's making the case that essentially, since Michael Saylor came in, since the Bitcoin treasuries came in, since the ETFs got approved, since the Trump administration is basically making the case that, hey, the U.S. government has every intention of acquiring more Bitcoin, the strategic Bitcoin reserve, the traditional 4-year cycle is over, and we're now heading into a super cycle, or what he calls a sailor cycle. So let's kind of explore what that means. And of course, all of this is speculative. None of this has happened. But as you can see, it's kind of like this chopping upwards slowly sideways. And this cycle has kind of been like that, right? We've had, 2-3 months of it going parabolic a little bit, not as much as previous cycles, and then we have 6 months of it chopsolidation, of it going basically sideways. And he's basically making the case that look, that's pretty much going to be the case for the foreseeable future. And if you connect the dots with what Michael Saylor was saying in a previous legacy mainstream media interview, he was basically making the same case. It was Mackenzie Sagalos that asked him, I think it was hey, are we going to get a correction? He's like, no, the corrections are over. The corrections are done. Now, here's the thing. I've been in Bitcoin long enough where I remember the same things being said many times. And I'm not the only one to feel that way. So before we get into it, let's get to how the community reacted to this post in the first place. So we're going to go post by post. So first, for skeptics, look at the structure of the S&P 500 since QE. Bear markets and bull markets exist in the QE era parallel ascending channel. When the Fed became an insatiable buyer of treasuries, drawdowns weren't as long or steep. BTC is a scarce asset and has insatiable demand. He goes on to say, and here it is in log. Here's why Bitcoin will still follow the sailor cycle even during debt deflation that might be caused by something like an AI singularity or a devastating war. Don't fear. Be brave. Anyways, so we have a lot of people kind of pushing back. Here's Willy Woo, and this guy he said it in a little bit of we've heard this before. Willy Woo back in 2021 basically said the same thing. The last cycle. Matt C says, just going to leave this year. Bitcoin third year is when everyone always declare the 4-year cycle is over. Here's Bob Lucas. Bob Lucas is an incredibly popular, kind of YouTuber, Bitcoin YouTuber, and he says, seriously doubt it. British Hodl says, been saying this, so we do have people agreeing. Sunny Post says, human psychology is why there will be cycles. Always. Madex says, I'm waiting to smash by at 10K. Now, Adam Back completely, who was quoted in the Satoshi white paper, completely ratioed Brad Mills. And he said, or alternatively, it could be a transition period for a parabolic breakout, where the S curve gets steeper, invalidating the quote diminishing returns theory and breaking power law and then stock to flow models to the upside. That's my what if anyway. Of course, Samson Mao says, Omega cycle. Cena says, not a foregone conclusion. If you adjust for diminishing return, the timing matched prior cycles very well. And of course, we've been following Cena. I had a podcast with Cena in which we showed, his quantile model, basically kind of following the power law model. And it's been somewhat accurate so far this cycle. Zach XBT, very popular on X, he says, don't think you can say it's sustainable when you have all these new treasury companies aggressively creating new methods to max bid BTC or alts in the short. And then Jackie says, this time always feels different. The thing about the present, then the mighty hindsight humbles us to once again realize that we cannot escape who we are. So like kind of the, differentiating theories, right? Brad Mills basically is making the case that, hey, look, the things have changed forever because of the Bitcoin treasury companies. Adam Back is basically saying, dude, you're not bullish enough. We're actually about to hit the S curve, and the whole diminishing returns theory, all of that's going to go out the window. And then a lot of us, and I sit in this camp, by the way, are basically saying, hey, guys, I've heard this a million times. There's going to be a crash. There's going to be a correction like there always is. So Adam Back responded to Brad Mills, and he says, imagine me permanently bemused while Bitcoin isn't already at $1 million per coin and people are not getting it. Here's Brad Mills again. My bullishness been ratioed by Adam Back's uber bullishness. And of course, we have Svetsky, who's saying human psychology will never change. Cycles have nothing to do with Bitcoin and everything to do with people. I think that's very true, by the way. That's like psychology plays a lot into it. And he says, the same boom and crash will happen this time. Bookmark this. I'm going to give that a like. Brad Mills replies with, take a look at the S&P chart over the last 30 years. And then Svetsky replies, S&P and Bitcoin are two different things. People understand companies in the stock market. These concepts have been around for over 350 years. They don't understand Bitcoin. You can't make that comparison in 20 years at the earliest, but more likely 50 years. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Is this the super cycle? Is the super cycle finally here? Is it happening? Is it effectuating? Is it manifesting in real life? Has Saylor getting into the game and the success of the Bitcoin treasury companies changed the dynamic? The announcement of the Trump administration saying, hey, we're going to buy Bitcoin. Have they changed everything? Is the Bitcoin super cycle here? Or is history repeating itself? And once again, like every cycle in the past where we've heard super cycle, we're going to have a correction once again. Let us know down in the comments what you guys think. But before I pass it on to Opti, I do again want to welcome our very special guest, CEO and president of SAT123.com, Tina Blancho, in the house. Tina, what are your thoughts? Is Bitcoin super cycle, is it real? Is it here? Are we entering a new era in Bitcoin's history, or is history repeating itself? And once again, we're going to have a correction one day or the other.
Yeah. Well, I guess on the correction part, I think it's going to depend on the economy. But you know that I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. I've been buying Bitcoin since Bitcoin was $1. And then I'd get so excited when bought 1,000 Bitcoins, and then it went up to $3, and I'd sell it, and then I'd buy it for $8 and sell it for $12. And now, yes, just like everyone else, I'm kicking myself for not keeping everything that I purchase. And and obviously, as you know, I've been mining and still work with my business partner. We're mining with buildings and a lot of equipment in the state of Washington, because that was the cheapest at the time when we purchased the buildings and all these chips, was because the electricity, we found an area where it was only 2 cents per kilobyte, but that's
Wow.
changed since 5 years ago. They keep raising the price, so we may have to move to Wyoming or something. But yeah, I am a huge fan. And look, I think that the best way to get into the Bitcoin is to start. And if you want to buy, let's say you want to own a Bitcoin, start by buying $50, $100 a week, or whatever you can afford a month. But any extra cash, I would recommend, and I recommend this to all of my employees, as I got all of my employees 15 years ago started in purchasing crypto. Actually, it's what I gave them instead of 401k. I started giving them Bitcoins, Ethereums, and Ripple, Litecoin, and all that. But I just recommend that everyone to start somewhere and not to be afraid. So what if it went down a little bit? If you buy a little every week, it ain't gonna matter.
100%. I 100% agree with that statement. Wise words. And wow, I wish I was your employee 15 years ago. That was an incredible, that's much better than a 401k being part of the comp being given Bitcoin at such an early price. And I mean, buying Bitcoin for $1, like that is crazy. I think one of the things that you were saying, by the way, Tina, I don't know if you know this, but in the Bitcoin community, you'd be considered an OG. You are an OG if you're buying Bitcoin at $1. And yeah, it's crazy though, because back then there was a lot more uncertainty. Back then, Bitcoin wasn't a sure thing like it is today. And that's something that a lot of us have to remember, right? Like Bitcoin right now feels like a sure thing. Bitcoin right now is like, guys, I think we basically won. We have the end of Operation Choke Point 2.0, the embracement of Wall Street, right? But back in that era, Bitcoin was the Wild West. There wasn't that certainty. Now, Tina, before we move forward, one of the things you mentioned too is essentially how you bought, I think it was like a dollar per Bitcoin. You bought like 1,000 of them, and then you sold when it got to like $3 or something, right? And that's an amazing trade because that's like a 3x, right? And then in hindsight, again, back then, guys, you have to understand, like in that era, that was the pizza era, right? That was when, what was the guy's name? Laszlo basically bought 2 Papa John pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin, because back then no one had any idea that Bitcoin would have any value whatsoever, right? So you guys have to understand that it was a completely different era back then. So could you talk a little bit about that, Tina?
Yeah. At the time, my son, he was 11 years old, and he came up to me and he's like, Mom, you gotta see this. And that's kind of like how I got into it and started doing research. I always listen to young people. I always, every time a young person says, look, I've got these jeans that just came out, what I do is I go and I call the company and say, how do I invest? Because if young people are looking into something that is like really cool to them, I know it's going to be the biggest thing. I remember back when Bitcoin started, and I thought, oh man, this is going to be huge. It took me 6 months to get a hold of someone at Coinbase, because at the time they had less than $1 billion in crypto, to try to invest with them. And finally, I got a call, and they said that they're not looking for investors. So I kind of missed out on that one. But yeah, that's kind of like the way that you see that I visualize things. I made the mistakes by selling a lot of it, and honestly, if every one of my employees would have kept all their Bitcoins, I would have nothing but millionaires working for me at this point, because that's how much crypto I gave them every month. Back in like 2009 era until about the 2020. But I found out that most of them sold their Bitcoin, with an exception of a couple of them, and they're amazingly doing really well, and they're very happy that they kept. But a lot of the employees saw, oh my gosh, I got, $20,000 in crypto, and now it's worth 60,000. And let me sell it. If they kept it, it would be worth somewhere closer to about $5 million today. So, yeah, so
Wow.
I've had a lot of experience, a lot of missed opportunities. I've done really well. I've kept a lot of them. I am very diversified in crypto though. I have pretty much almost every crypto that's out there. And I have also lost a lot with a lot of the tokens that I got in early on, where you pay $5 and then they go down to a penny. So yeah, I've made every single mistake in the book.
Yeah, I think that everyone pays their price of tuition, as we like to call it here at Simply Bitcoin, where you essentially you make all the mistakes that you can make, right? Which is you sell early, you don't really realize and understand what you have, and it's only through kind of trials and tribulations, through the volatility and hodling over a long period of time, where you start to get an appreciation of what it is that you're holding. Opti, I'm going to pass it on to you, bro. What are we looking at? First of all, I'm super hyped that Tina is joining us on the show today. We're going to be talking about SAT123 later on today's show, guys. It's not only important to become sovereign financially, but also sovereign connection wise. You got to become a sovereign individual overall. So we're really excited to talk about SAT123 during the culture segment. But before we get to that, Opti, I'm going to pass it on to you. Dude, are we experiencing a super cycle, bro?
Well, I really want to believe it, Nico. I really do. I've been saying for a while that the super cycle is coming. Half the time I'm kind of trolling. Again, I'm trying to manifest it, guys. But looking at that chart that Brad Mills had, while I do like that structure, and I actually have been kind of saying something similar on the show, that we might be seeing this like stepwise function in the market where it'll pump, kind of goes sideways, chop solidates a little bit, pumps again. And it would really be probably like the most boring price action for us Bitcoiners, because will we never see a parabolic run again? As much as everyone's here for just the tech, we love when number goes up. You can't lie to yourself and tell us that you don't like that. But part of me is still thinking that the 4-year cycle was still kind of in play. Though I have been saying it on the show, it does feel like this time is different. And as much as we kind of are basing our bear case, or rather our base case as a company, that we will see a 4-year cycle, I have been saying on the show for a while that we are looking at, or potentially looking at, a more of a longer, elongated bear or bull cycle here. So a lot of people have been saying we're going to be pumping into 2026. There's been some new reports of people basically saying, look, it's going to pump into 2026 and 2027, 2028, 7-figure per Bitcoin. Now, there has been the idea of diminishing returns play out a lot on Twitter. And if you do look at the data, it does kind of seem to be playing out in that scenario, that we are seeing diminishing returns, that the Bitcoin price does kind of pump later than it usually did in the past, and it's not pumping as hard. Now, of course, we only have about 3 or 4 data points to really lean on. And I don't know, man. It really does feel, if there isn't that much paper Bitcoin in the space, and that's obviously kind of the big question mark right here, is where is all the Bitcoin coming from that these corporate treasuries are supposedly stacking? How much paper Bitcoin is in the system? What is suppressing the price here? But if you just take it on face value and you look at how much demand is coming into Bitcoin in just fiat terms to acquire Bitcoin, every week we have a new Bitcoin treasury company talking about acquiring more Bitcoin. We've seen, nation states talk about this. And so until all that Bitcoin is actually, or rather all that fiat is actually going into the market, I think we can still kind of safely say that we might be playing out in the cycles. But we also have to remember the macro factors that are playing into the scenario right now. There is a lot of macro uncertainty playing out. Of course, there is the big news coming out of the Middle East. Of course, we're seeing the bonds market start to blow up. It seems like there's cracks in the bond markets. We're seeing some of the biggest and most influential investors, macro investors, come out and essentially say, hey, you need to have some Bitcoin. This is the perfect portfolio. You need to have some Bitcoin in that portfolio. And of course, the trend by the BRICS nations of dropping bonds right now, whether that's US bonds or even just not wanting bonds in general. They're starting to stack gold. We're starting to see more interest going into Bitcoin. So I do think this is kind of a perfect storm playing out right now. And of course, only 2020 will kind of show us whether the cycle is broken. But it does feel like we are entering a new era, a new paradigm here. And by that being kind of the case here, that would, I think, fundamentally change the structure of Bitcoin. As we've been kind of talking about recently, the halving cycle has kind of its effect, I think, on the market is starting to dwindle. I don't know if it's over, but the amount of Bitcoin that are being mined a day and a year because of the halving, it's a lot less on the market. And obviously, the market, or rather the price, isn't being driven by retail FOMO anymore, or rather yet. And we're seeing some big institutional capital, literally the biggest markets in the world, start to embrace Bitcoin. And again, we got to remember, Bitcoin's a $2 trillion market cap. There's 900 trillion or 1,000 trillion dollars in all assets around the world. If a buyer with huge conviction comes into Bitcoin, really wants to stack Bitcoin, get a position, I think all bets are off here. So, we're watching this closely. Of course, as a Bitcoiner, we love the 4-year cycle. It makes life a little easier. 3 green, 1 red. I think we're all kind of hoping we have at least one more cycle left in us so that we can stack some Bitcoin. But who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if that breaks here, which means, as Tina was saying, prepare now, get off zero, stack Bitcoin, whether it's $50, $100, etc. You need to get exposure in Bitcoin right now because, as the meme goes, we might not ever see under 100 again, Nico. I don't know.
Dude, I've heard that so many times.
This time's different.
I'll believe it when I see it. I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. We got 1,300 people watching live between YouTube and X, and almost 400 people watching live on Rumble. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. We have a hell of a show lined up for you guys today. We're going to be talking about a couple of different things. We got Paul Tudor Jones basically making the case that everyone should have Bitcoin as part of their portfolio, something that Tina was saying earlier on. We're sitting at $107,800, man. I mean, I think people are getting used to this, bro. 100K is boring now. 100K is boring. Like, could you imagine saying that 2 or 3 years ago? Hey, man, we were just going to be channeling at 100K. Everyone would be ecstatic, but it's getting normalized. It's getting normalized, the fact that Bitcoin's sitting at 100K. But I think if you pay attention to the fundamentals, things are looking incredibly bullish. And then during the news segment, we're going to be talking about MetaPlanet. So MetaPlanet, they finally hit 10,000 Bitcoin. They overtook Coinbase, and their stock surged 20% as they made their announcement. Pension funds are buying Bitcoin as well. A Forbes article dropped regarding that. And yeah, guys, it's a brave new world. Bitcoin's becoming institutionalized in a way. I still think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. And, I think we're going to see $500,000 Bitcoin a lot sooner than everyone anticipates. I just want to pull this up one more time. Opti, let's kind of do like a little bit of a deep dive on this before we move on to the next segment. The so-called Sailor Cycle, man. The Sailor Cycle, once again showing it. The ETF chasm crossed. The so-called wet red wave. He was, talking about the previous election, and of course now the Sailor Cycle. All this treasury companies, kind of getting involved. My theory on this is basically like. All it takes is someone in the chat. What they say? We'll never see Bitcoin under 100K. LOL, smash by. So yeah, what I will say is this, guys. Like, look, I think that there's going to be a lot more treasury companies, obviously, because like that's the current thing, that's the current fad. But I think the more treasury companies join the market, they're going to start cutting corners. I think they're going to start cutting corners to acquire Bitcoin. They're going to use fiat, the fiat kind of debt system to acquire Bitcoin. And eventually one of themselves is going to find themselves over leveraged. And what's going to happen is when the price does correct, because it will correct, like we will have a 20, 30, 40% correction again. Like that is ridiculous that we're not going to see that type of stuff. And all it takes is one of these companies that are over leveraged, one of these Bitcoin treasury companies that are over leveraged, to start creating like this cascading domino effect. Now, does that mean that strategy is in trouble? No. Does that mean that 21 is in trouble? No. Does that mean that Nakamoto is in trouble? No, absolutely not. But these smaller companies that take riskier bets, so to speak, they could potentially find themselves in trouble. You know, I'll stick with that. So, Opti, I want to get your take on that, then Tina's take, and then we'll move on to the numbers segment.
Yeah, well, as I said on Twitter this morning, and I don't think I tweeted it clearly enough here, but I was saying, I don't like this view. I was saying on Twitter this morning, it's starting to feel like 100K of last cycle is the new norm. As everyone was saying last cycle, 2021, we're going to 100K. Everyone was super bullish on 100K. We never made it there. And now I'm starting to feel the opposite, where we're hearing everyone saying, oh, it's only going to go to 150K. And I think it's going to overshoot that. I think we're going way higher because of all the things you see on this chart here. Of course, I don't know about this 10-year bull cycle following the S&P 500, but we are starting to see new demand for Bitcoin. Again, we've unlocked trillions of dollars of capital being able to go into Bitcoin. It's starting to get to this point where everyone is taking Bitcoin seriously.
There was a good comment there. Where is retail? I'm gonna
keep
going, Opti.
And so I do believe that things are changing. Whether they fundamentally change, I think is a totally different conversation. But whether the price does break the 4-year cycle or not, we can still, I think, all agree on one idea. Things are changing. This time is different in the sense of who is interested in Bitcoin. Now, does that mean this time is different in terms of the 4-year cycle? We can only see this in hindsight, but it is starting to feel like a lot of capital is going to get unlocked into Bitcoin. And like we just keep reiterating to you guys, this is not the time to stop stacking Bitcoin. This is not the time to, sell your Bitcoin for 120K or whatever. You want to maintain as much Bitcoin holdings as possible. Take it into cold storage. Don't leave it on exchanges. This is what we've been talking about, and it's happening. And here it is. And I think a lot of the pushback we're seeing from Bitcoiners in general, I think it's kind of a zeitgeist of where we are right now. I think Bitcoiners knew that this moment was going to happen, and when it's happening, we're kind of having a hard time grasping what is actually happening, and we're like, oh, it's getting co-opted, and it's like, I'm pretty sure this was how it's supposed to happen, or rather, maybe not how or it should have happened. This is just how it's happening now. And I think as long as we're all running nodes, taking Bitcoin into custody, Bitcoin's decentralized, permissionless, censorship resistant, features will maintain itself if we are all vigilant here. Again, run a node, take your Bitcoin into custody. This is how we win.
Absolutely. Amen to that. I'm going to pass it on to Tina. Tina, you said something extremely wise. By the way, for anyone who's just tuning in, 1,400 live viewers between YouTube and X, and Rumble coming in strong at 250 live viewers. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, smash that like button. Help us break 100 likes by the time we get to the 45-minute mark. So smash that like button if you guys are enjoying the content. Anyways, I'm going to pass it on to Tina. Tina, you said something really wise earlier, right? You said just buy a little bit every single day, whatever you can afford. That is the best strategy. How did you come up with that strategy? How did you reach that conclusion in your mind that is the best way forward?
Yeah. Well, everybody's always saying, you know what? I can't buy a Bitcoin now. It's over 100,000. I'll wait until it goes down. But I've been hearing that since it was like $1,000. I'll wait till it goes down. I'll wait till it goes down. But you know what? Just start somewhere. And if you're like on a budget and you're barely making ends meet, give something up that you're spending money. Like there's no reason to spend $5 on a cup of coffee. You can be putting $5, make your own coffee at home, and put $5. Just start somewhere. and and learn. I mean, look, we early on, we made a lot of mistakes. I've lost so many bitcoins to hackers. I've lost a lot, and I've learned from all of those. You don't have to learn those things, because you get to watch the show and learn how to protect yourself. Like what you just said. You said, don't take them off. Put them in your safe. Put them in a file, in a code. Put them inside of a Faraday bag. I mean, protect yourself and learn from people that made a mistake, like myself and people ahead of you. A lot of these young people, today, are very computer savvy, and yeah. So again, I've even printed my bitcoins, and my husband found them, and he's like, "Oh, what's this code?" And he threw them away. So we've done every single mistake in the book, and we're giving you our mistakes, not to make the same mistakes. Learn from people like you on what to do and how to protect yourself from losing your bitcoins, as well as investing in them.
Very, very, very wise words. Yeah, paper wallets, man. Could you imagine paper wallets, throwing it away? There is this very famous story of someone who basically had tens of thousands of Bitcoin, and he had it on a hard drive, and he threw away that hard drive, and it's at a landfill, and he's spending all this time basically going through a landfill. I've definitely lost a couple coins for sure in the past, just because I just lost access to those keys. So yeah, but this is all part of paying the price of tuition. Back then, you didn't understand Bitcoin's worth and value. Now, someone in the chat said something really wise that I wanted to cover before we move on to the next segment, which is they brought up the question, where is retail? I think that's a very good question. I'm going to pull this up. We've been pulling this up quite a lot recently, and that's a very good question. Where is retail? So this is Google Trends. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's how much people are searching Bitcoin on Google. And as you could see, retail has basically peaked in December of 2017. It hasn't come back since. It kind of came back in 2021 with that previous bull market. But as you could see with this bull market, look at retail. Retail is gone. Retail is not here. Retail is not interested in Bitcoin whatsoever, which is why I think we still have a long ways to go. This is not euphoria phase territory, my friends. This is like disbelief. People just don't know Bitcoin exists right now at the moment. That's what it looks like to me. Anyways, guys, it's gonna be.
I don't know. Hold on. There was a good comment here. C-suite retail is in the ETFs, and I think that's could be some of the demand that's being taken off.
So search. Let's. All right. So let's
search Bitcoin ETFs.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, if retail's in the ETFs, let's search Bitcoin ETF. Let's see. I mean, yeah, kind of true. I mean, it peaked in January of 2020, but it still hasn't, it really hasn't come back since. Like in January 2024, it peaked, but I mean, yeah. So I mean, what about MicroStrategy? That's a really
yeah,
MicroStrategy. Let's see, maybe retail's in MicroStrategy. No. Did I spell it wrong?
You got to compare them all together.
Strategy. There we go. Let's see. Oh, let me see. No. Nope. What about Sailor? Let's see. Nope.
Okay, breaking. Retail is not here.
I mean, yeah, dude. No. Sailor peaked in 2021. Retail's not here. The retail is not in the building here at the moment. Anyways, guys, it's going to be a great show. We have tons to cover. We're going to be talking about MetaPlanet. We're going to be talking about Paul Tudor Jones, and we're going to be talking about SAT123. Reclaim back your sovereignty in all forms. So it's going to be a great show. And I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. We just broke 1,500 live viewers. If you guys are enjoying today's show, make sure to smash that like button. Really helps with the algos. Of course, give a shout out to Rumble, give a shout out to X. Smash the like button, like I said. Before we get into the number segment, I do want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor, the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. The reason that we recommend bitcoinwell.com here at Simply Bitcoin is because it's automatic self-custody. What does that mean? That means that when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. To get started, you put in your email address here. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to get signed up, and bada bing, bada boom, you're ready to buy Bitcoin. Every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn something called Bitcoin Well points, and you could use those points towards a bunch of different prizes, like a Simply Bitcoin hoodie, a BitAxe, an entropy pouch, a stamp seed plate, an orange Cybertruck, or you can use it towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest, which we're going to be doing live for you guys right now on air. Get your Lightning wallets ready. First person to scan the QR code has won 481 sats. If you use promo code Simply or go to bitcoinwell.com/simply when you sign up, you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well, and every single toss you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million satoshis. All right, everybody, let's start the show. We will be right back in just a second. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today. All right, everybody, we are back, ladies and gentlemen, and let's jump straight into today's number segment. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 107,800. Block height, 901,537 sats per dollar, 928 sats per dollar. Market cap, 2.14 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 8.92%. Percentage issued, 94.66%. Decline from all-time high, negative 3.8%. Negative 3.7%. Realized monetary inflation, 0.85%. Anyways, I have a very interesting clip of Paul Tudor Jones saying the quiet part out loud that everyone should have Bitcoin as part of their portfolio. Let's check it out.
Great, which would do terribly if we ever actually had, if they called us out and the bond market actually gave us an accident that then spilled over. But it would be some combination of probably gold, vol adjusted, Bitcoin, gold, stocks. That's probably your best portfolio to fight inflation. Vol adjusted, because the vol of Bitcoin's obviously 5 times that of gold, so you're gonna do it in different weights.
You said at one point you would allocate 1 or 2% of your portfolio to Bitcoin. Is it still?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just, particularly now that the roadmap is clear, then I mean, again, if I'm a policymaker, I'm going to run really low real rates. I'm going to have inflation running hot, and I'm going to tax the American consumer to get out of my debt trap. And that's exactly what Japan, who's the most fiscally constrained in the world, doing. And it works until the population throws you out because you let inflation get too hot. So
I mean, extremely wise words, right? You know, talking about essentially the debt trap, right? This unsustainable fiscal trajectory that the United States is heading towards. Lynn Alden calls it "nothing stops this train." Larry Lepard calls it the big print. Even Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, basically making the argument that, hey guys, that the US current fiscal policy is unsustainable. Everyone's admitting this. And what Paul Tudor Jones is basically making the argument for is like, look, there's really no way to get out of this other than to print or to tax the population. I think taxes are at a point right now where I just don't think you could raise them. Either political party can raise them, and it would be politically. It would be popular politically. I really believe that we're at that point. So I think that their only option is Larry Lepard's book name, The Big Print. They're going to print money. If they print money, you're going to have inflation. And what Paul Tudor Jones is basically making the argument for is like, look, what protects you when, you know, government prints money? Hard assets, gold or Bitcoin, right? I think Bitcoin's superior to gold in many different ways, obviously because of its physical character, because of its characteristics, because there's absolute scarcity. Gold doesn't have absolute scarcity. So yeah, I mean, like, that's pretty crazy though. Again, moving the Overton window, going on legacy media and basically saying the quiet part out loud. Hey guys, look, nothing stops this train. They're going to have to print their way out of this. And if you want to protect yourself, you're going to have to buy yourself some Bitcoin. And it's funny because the anchor, Paul, said a couple of different things, right? He said there's a couple of different options that people had to buy or to do this. To kind of get out of inflation. And what's really interesting is the anchor only asked him about Bitcoin. He's like, so are you still sticking to that 1% to 2% portfolio allocation for Bitcoin? Completely ignored gold and the other things that he said. And that's the signal right there. Opti, and then I'm going to pass it on to Tina.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we've seen in the recent weeks, we have some of the biggest billionaires, investors, you know, macro investors start to very publicly come out against Bitcoin. Now, I know there's a lot of people
come out against Bitcoin?
Come out for Bitcoin. In particular, Ray Dalio, Paul Tudor Jones, Druckenmiller. They're like a lot of really big names are essentially saying the same thing. You know, Larry Fink, they're all essentially saying the same thing. Hey, there is a problem with inflation. There may be a problem structurally, systemically with the bond market. There's a lot of concerns going on right now, and you probably want to own this Bitcoin thing that is completely parallel to the system. It's an inflation hedge. I know we've seen Bitcoin kind of react sort of like a high beta tech stock play right now. So it is kind of, you know, in that risky category right now, but there will be a point when it breaks. And I think the fact we're seeing like the Ray Dalios of the world turn around and switch 100% for Bitcoin when they used to be like, I'm not going into it. I think we're starting to see that the signal is spreading and people are very curious and very sober looking at Bitcoin and being like, this might actually be what all these crazy kids on the internet have been saying. It might actually be the thing that fixes the system. It might be the true inflation unparalleled hedge that we've been saying for a long time. They are still a little conservative and basically saying, hey, you know, just buy 1 to 5%, something that makes you feel comfortable here. You don't have to go full Twitter DJ and go 100, 150% in. You don't have to go full sailor on this, but you need to hold some of it. And I think as we start to get people a little more used to the idea of actually holding Bitcoin, then the dominoes are going to fall. I think as every one of us know, when you get into Bitcoin, you kind of dip your toes into it. And then next thing you know, you're like, I am dedicating my whole life to this. I'm not going to buy shares. Like, I don't want to buy anything but Bitcoin. And I think we're starting to see the beginning of those dominoes fall. So again, it's going to get crazy. And I think as things get more chaotic in the world, people are going to finally get to where we think, you know, Bitcoin is our stable coin. Bitcoin is our safety net. Bitcoin is the safest thing to be holding right now. it just hasn't fully been, distributed through the popular culture, the popular zeitgeist yet, but it's getting there, and we are in the beginning innings of this.
Absolutely. And now I want to ask Tina. Tina, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur yourself, Tina, what would be the proper Bitcoin allocation for you as an individual and you as a business?
Yeah. So I'll tell you my investments. So I have 25% in crypto. Majority of it is in Bitcoin. I've got 25% in gold and silver, platinum. And then I have 25% in into stocks and bonds and all the other stuff that that's very volatile. And then the other 25% I invest in startups, but I keep no cash hardly ever because I think cash is kind of dying. They're printing; it's just a printer. So I do invest a lot in startup companies. So yeah.
Very, very, very wise too. 25% of your net worth in Bitcoin, mostly in Bitcoin. Part of that, that's very aggressive, I would say. For most people, successful people, they like to dip their toes in a little bit, but that tells me that you essentially have lost trust in the system. You're basically saying, you know what, I'm going to put 25% of my net worth in Bitcoin. I'm going to invest in startups, and that's also kind of risky because the majority of startups don't work out so much. But of course, you get winners here and there. But that tells me that you don't have confidence in fiat money. You don't have confidence in the dollar. You have confidence in Bitcoin, and you're putting you're putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually about 1 out of 10 startups that I invest in that pays out. But usually when they do pay out, they pay out really good. It's a risk that you have to take. And a lot of the startups that I invest in, then usually I pursue them. Like when I see a product, like a new product, I remember when I saw, like back in the old days, when I saw somebody gave me a Fitbit, I'm like, what? This was like way back before this stuff existed. And so when I find a product that I totally love, I will contact the companies and become an investor. And that's kind of like how I do. And then I get people that approach me, and if they've had a good history of a product that they've done in the past that was successful, I'll invest in those new products. But that's kind of like what I like to do. But so far, by far, Bitcoin has been one of my best investment. The most money that I've made is through a Bitcoin. My stocks have done like absolutely not much. Yeah.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Bitcoin's the winner, and that is kind of like the startup game for anyone. I've been only focused on the kind of the Bitcoin space, but I've invested in a couple startups only in Bitcoin. But it's a numbers game, right? So you get base out of 10. Expect 8 of them to fail, expect 1 of them to do okay, and then expect 1 to be a home run, and it kind of makes up for all the other ones, right? That's kind of like the kind of like the odds and the startup stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's extremely exciting, and obviously, Tina, it seems like you really got this system honed in. But what really makes me excited is that you're a successful CEO, you have a successful company, and you still see Bitcoin as a necessity to park some of your net worth, to park some of your wealth, and that you've lost confidence in the dollar. I mean, that tells me, guys, again, that we're winning. The Overton window is shifting. Bitcoin is becoming acceptable. And just to kind of connect the dots with what Paul Tudor Jones was saying, yes, this is just becoming mainstream at this point, right? Bitcoin should be part, at this point, you should have no excuse. Bitcoin should be part of your portfolio. If you're like me and Opti, it's like 100%. But again, you should have at least some type of exposure to Bitcoin at this point. There's absolutely no excuse, no reason as to why you shouldn't. There's ETFs now. There's Bitcoin treasury companies. Of course, here at Simply Bitcoin, we recommend spot Bitcoin. But yeah, anyways, guys, it's going to be a great show. We're going to be talking about MetaPlanet during the news segment, continuing to outperform. The stock is going absolutely flying. And we have a Forbes article that's basically saying that pension funds are buying Bitcoin, basically making a new path. Not surprising there at all. Again, Bitcoin's the best performing asset of the last, 15, 16 years. So yeah, guys, we're going to be talking about that. And then during the culture segment, we have the CEO and president of SAT123.com joining us on the show today. Guys, sovereignty isn't just about holding your own Bitcoin private keys. Sovereignty comes in many which forms. We're going to be talking about, the perfect place where you can go to start building your own Bitcoin citadel. And we're going to be talking to Tina about that during the culture segment. So guys, stay tuned. We're going to be right back in just 1 second.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, SAT123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Cold Card. If you're serious about self-custody, Cold Card is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet. There is no second best. The Cold Card Q is the ultimate air-gapped Bitcoin signing device, complete with a full keyboard, large screen, camera, NFC support, and much more. Do you prefer something sleeker? The MK4 is trusted by hardcore Bitcoiners around the world. Both are built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners, secure and open source. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 5% off with promo code SIMPLY. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today with Cold Card.
All right, everybody, we are back. Let's talk about smash that like button, by the way, if you guys are enjoying today's show. I'm here joined with my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields, and our special guest for today, the CEO and president of SAT123. We got Tina Blancho in the house, and we're going to be talking about reclaiming back your sovereignty in every which way during the culture segment. So if you guys are enjoying today's show, smash that like button. We have 2,000 live viewers across X and YouTube, and of course the Rumble live stream coming in hot with 224 live viewers. Again, guys, smash that like button. Really helps pushing us in the algos. We're going to be talking about MetaPlanet. MetaPlanet officially holds 10,000 Bitcoin, beating Coinbase. Could you imagine being Coinbase? You get into the industry 2013, and a company that literally started accumulating Bitcoin last year has overtook your Bitcoin stack. Not a good look for Coinbase. But anyhow, let's get straight into the article. MetaPlanet's Bitcoin holdings hit 10,000 BTC, beating Coinbase. It goes on to say, Japanese investment firm MetaPlanet's latest 1,112 Bitcoin purchase has finally tipped its total Bitcoin holdings to 10,000 Bitcoin, surpassing Coinbase as the seventh largest publicly traded company with a Bitcoin treasury. On Monday, Tuesday, MetaPlanet announced that it had purchased the Bitcoin stack for 16.88 billion Japanese yen, or 117 million US dollars. The firm now holds 10,000 Bitcoin, beating Coinbase's 9,267 Bitcoin. The average price of MetaPlanet's 10,000 Bitcoin now stands at approximately 96,400 per Bitcoin. It comes just 2 weeks after MetaPlanet became the 8th largest corporate holder of Bitcoin. MetaPlanet issues $210 million worth of bonds to buy Bitcoin. It came the same day MetaPlanet announced that its board of directors has resolved its issue, had resolved to issue 210 million via no interest bonds, and that it raised that figure to buy more Bitcoin. The firm has drastically revised its Bitcoin strategy in recent months and now intends to hold 210,000 Bitcoin by the end of 2027. Can they get, bro? I mean, like, that's a very big target. How do you get from 10,000 Bitcoin to 210,000? I don't know. But I will tell you though, if like this is great for number go up. That's what I'll say. This is fantastic for number go up. So far, MetaPlanet has completed the purchase of 10,000 BTC. That's a long ways to go, and will need to buy an additional 200,000 Bitcoin over the next 18 months. MetaPlanet stock rallied over 20%. The back-to-back announcement has seen the price of MetaPlanet's share soar drastically over the day. MetaPlanet's stock rallied 22% on Monday on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, peaking at 1,860 Japanese yen. MetaPlanet's stock has seen an uptick of more than 417% year to date. Institutional demand is still going strong. Despite the recent crash where Bitcoin dropped from 110,000 to 103,000 in a span of 3 days due to geopolitical tensions, demand from institutional investors has remained steady. You know what the crazy part is, bro? That all that stuff in the Middle East, we dropped from 110 down to 103, and we're back at 108, right? Like, that's crazy. Anyways, Bitcoin ETFs witnessed 5 days of net inflows last week, with institutional investors pouring in over 1.3 billion during the period. On Saturday, Bitwise asset manager CEO Hunter Horsley said that Bitcoin had the potential to overtake the 30 trillion treasuries market. I mean, dude, that's crazy. That's like a 15x from here. There's also this article from Forbes: as pension funds buy Bitcoin, a new path in its history is traced. It goes on to say, I'm not going to read the whole thing, we don't have time, but it goes on to say, we've seen wave of big institutional players adopt Bitcoin, even traditionally conservative players. The talk of the town has been nation-state adoption of Bitcoin, from El Salvador's experiment with Bitcoin as legal tender to recent actions in the United States with the new administration. Yet pension funds are inching in as well. A reflection of this has been the small but growing number of pension funds that are adopting Bitcoin, a unique phenomenon that marks a unique path in Bitcoin's evolution that has remained understudied for the moment. The state of Wisconsin's pension fund has adopted Bitcoin through investment in spot Bitcoin ETFs. An unnamed UK pension scheme, does that say scheme? It does say scheme. UK pension scheme has a 3%. It makes it sound like weird. And anyway, a unnamed UK pension has made a 3% allocation to Bitcoin working with Cartwright. The state of Michigan's retirement system has made a multi-million-dollar investment in Bitcoin ETFs. And while it's small steps at the beginning, as more institutions gather Bitcoin, this is a promising path forward for adoption. Much of the background research and points came out of a conversation with two sources who had vast experience with pension fund allocation: Sam Roberts of Cartwright, which has advised a UK-based pension fund to allocate 3% towards Bitcoin, and Dom Bay, shout out our boy Dom, of Proof of Workforce, which has helped various unions save holdings in Bitcoin. So I'm going to leave it at that. I mean, this is crazy. Bitcoin is taking over. Pension funds are buying Bitcoin. Bitcoin is outperforming in the traditional markets. MetaPlanet up 417% year to date. MicroStrategy also an incredible performance. treasury companies popping up left and right. Adam Back just announced that he made, I think it was like a $10 million investment in a Bitcoin treasury company coming out of Sweden. So this is spreading. Bitcoin is winning. This is what winning looks like. This is what winning feels like. Feels incredible. Tina, where do you think we're going from here?
Well, it sounds to me like I need to look up MetaPlanet. So and invest in that. So yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, that by the end of this year, I think that Bitcoin could hit 200,000. And I believe once it reaches the 200,000, it ain't gonna look back. It's just gonna continue to shoot up. And again, whatever you can afford, whether it's $50 a week or $100 or $1,000 a week or 5,000. I always encourage my employees, my friends, my family to continue to buy, and there's a lot of people. I think if you look at my Facebook post from years ago, I was warning people, my friends and family, and they all thought I was crazy, and very few people believed me. And today they're all kicking themselves for not taking advice. So now it's you're like almost at the beginning. 100,000 is going to look like a drop in a bucket. In 5 years from now, when it's 1 million, you're going to kick yourself for not buying it at 100,000. So that's kind of like my advice.
I completely agree. I couldn't resist. I had to hit the air horns. 100K is gonna look like a drop in the bucket a couple years from now. And it's always happened. I remember when Bitcoin was at 10,000, I was like, this is so expensive. I know people that bought it for $100 or bought it for 1,000. Could you imagine buying $10,000 Bitcoin right now? That'd feel great. It would feel fantastic, right?
I mean, imagine buying $1,000 Bitcoin or $1 Bitcoin. Right? That'd feel great.
It'd feel fantastic. So yeah, I completely agree with Tina's take and outlook. Bitcoin is taking over the world. Maybe it's a good idea to get some just in case it catches on. Opti, what's your take on this before we move on to the culture?
Yeah, my quick take is just continuing to reiterate that number that there's only 450 Bitcoin that get released a day. And with the amount of buy pressure that we're seeing, with the amount of all these convertible notes and the institutional capital starting to FOMO into Bitcoin, it's hard to see how we're not going to get into crazy six-figure numbers here. It makes no sense to me. The math isn't mathing. And if this continues or rather accelerates, I think we're going to be overshooting our price predictions here. And shouts out to Tina, because I've been saying the same thing. 200K, I've been just throwing that number out for over a year now. And now the data is starting to catch up to what I felt. But again, I could be wrong. Who knows? I don't know where it's going. But with all of this information and rather all of the supposed Bitcoin that's being bought up, it's hard to see how this price isn't going to go into the 200, 300K. And maybe these crazy numbers that, Max Kaiser's been throwing out or Samson Mao has been throwing out, it could go even higher. It could overshoot everything we're thinking about right now. And look, this is only the first 6 months of the year. It seems like the first 3 months of this year, it was kind of slow. And in the last 3 months, it seems to be picking up really quickly. So I don't know, man. I'm starting to get bullish every single day, every single block. It seems like it's going to get crazy.
Absolutely. Guys, I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. 2,000 live viewers, 400 live viewers just on YouTube alone, 1,500 live viewers on X, and 200 live viewers on Rumble. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, smash that like button. We reached already 150 likes. Help us break 200 likes by the time we wrap up the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hit the culture segment, and we're going to be talking to Tina Blancho, the CEO and president of SAT123.com. Sovereignty comes in many different ways, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just about reclaiming back your financial sovereignty. by taking your Bitcoin into self custody, but it's also about reclaiming back your sovereignty over your comms, right? So we're going to be talking about that. SAT123 has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin Citadel, Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags, everything and much more. So we're really, really excited. Let's get to the culture. We will be right back in just 1 second.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io.
All right, everybody, we are back. And of course, here we are joined with the CEO and president of SAT123. By the way, you can go to sat123.com/simplybitcoin and you'll get 15% off anything on the store. And we're going to be doing a live unboxing of many things that is on the sat123.com store, by the way. So we're going to start off with the Iridium Sat phone, and let's unbox it live on air. Tina, could you tell everybody a little bit about Sat123 while I do this?
Yeah. So the satellite phone that you're opening is an Iridium phone. Keep in mind that your smartphone works on about 7% of the Earth. This will work on 100% of the Earth. This is the phone that the military uses, the Senate, people that go camping, hiking, and then people that are in prep. Like, I think you guys are located in Miami, I believe, right?
Yep.
So you have to be prepared. If there's a hurricane, as we saw last year during Hurricane, Helene? Yeah. And the people that had satellite phones in North Carolina were able to call and for the whole community and get the right products from first responders. So we were working with the first responders at the same time because we donated a bunch of satellite phones and Starlinks so that they can bring the right products to certain areas, like if they needed baby formula or insulin or some kind of if somebody was out of prescription or pretty much what they needed. So when one person, again, had a satellite phone in a community, was able to help the whole community, and especially with allowing other people to use the phone to let their friends and family that they were safe. So these phones serve many, many purposes, not to mention also privacy. You know that when a call made from a satellite phone is the most secured call that you can make. This is exactly why the U.S. military uses them. They don't want the bad guys to listen in on the call. The tech companies are listening to us. They're selling us products. We just talk about products. I mean, it's the craziest thing. That's not going to happen with the satellite phone. And these are for free when you sign up on the service. They're $1,300, but we're giving them away for free so that you don't have the upfront sticker shock. And that's one of the things that we do in our company, is the only one that gives you the phones for free.
So guys, go to sat123.com/simply, get yourself a deal. And we got more products, by the way. This is one of my personal favorites. And you look at this and you're like, okay, wait, Nico, is this a bag? You know, like what are you doing? No. So this is a Faraday bag, right? So this is one of the best places. If you have a cold card, you put it in this bad boy. And I'm telling you, there's going to be no type of electrical interference, anything. Nothing's going to be able to get in here, right? Electronic wise, right? So if you want to put your cold card in a place where it's electronically secure, you want to put it in a Faraday bag, right? And they sell them in all different shapes and sizes. They got a fanny pack. Tina was nice enough to give me the fanny pack version at Bitcoin 2025, and I put my phone in there, and I was just walking around with it all day. So yeah, they have all of this at their store at sat123.com/simply. And again, this is a great place to put your Bitcoin hardware wallet for security purposes. They also have these batteries. So it's all about, again, achieving your sovereignty. We have a little bit of a green screen here. So the green is getting lost in the sauce, but this is the ultimate AC power bank. Has a lot of capacity. Could power 2 laptops, 3 tablets, 8 phones. Yeah, it's a good battery. And here in Florida, you know what happens? In the last 3 weeks at my house, the power has gone out. After you've been here, the power has gone out. There's literally a transformer that exploded outside, and the power went out in my neighborhood for like about, you know, a couple hours. And again, this is what these things are for, right? It's all about sovereignty. It's all about not relying on the grid, not relying on the local infrastructure. And if you're one of those Bitcoiners that, you know, again, are nomads, if you're one of those Bitcoiners that are, you know, going to Patagonia and setting up, you know, a Bitcoin citadel in the middle of nowhere, you guys got to get yourself one of these things. I have a question for you, Tina. The Iridium phone, does this work anywhere around the world?
It will work from anywhere on Earth. If you just take it outside, you extend the antenna, you'll catch a satellite, and you will be able to make a call to anyone. You don't have to have another satellite phone, from anywhere on Earth. And having this, I mean, we're seeing, you know, we saw the fires this year in LA. Luckily, we have a place in San Diego, so we were able to bring a lot of these to the fire departments so that they can communicate. But communication is huge, not just for, you know, the government, for us as well, and that's why it's affordable. Now, keep in mind, satellite cell phones work on like 7% of the Earth. These will cover 100% of the Earth. I wanted to go back on your the Faraday. You're right. You can get any Faraday products. Now, keep in mind, if we do get attacked if we do have an EMF, whether it's solar flare or just the bad guys attacking our electrical, because obviously the bad guys would attack our electrical over bombing us, because attacking our electrical is pretty much crippling our whole country. Everything that's inside here, whether it's your hard wallet, your disk, anything that you keep, anything electronics, is going to be protected if it's in here. And then I also want to bring up to you that if you ever want to go dark, so that nobody can track you, the second that you put your cell phone in here, it completely goes dark, compared to if you put on airplane mode or if you power off. There's a low mode battery that's in your iPhone that can still track you up to 72 hours. But the second that you put your phone in here, the tracking is completely stopped. No one can track you. No one can see your location, and also protects you from EMF. You don't want to expose yourself 24/7 to EMF, especially when you go to sleep at night. You can still hear the music through the case, and you can still hear your alarm clock, but the EMF is 100% stopped, so that you can get a better sleep and not expose yourself to 24/7 EMF.
Absolutely. And I actually did that last night. I put my iPhone on airplane mode, and I put it in one of the Faraday bags that I got at Bitcoin 2025. and I shut off the Wi-Fi in my bedroom, and I swear to God, I got better sleep. So I think there's some truth to what Dr. Cruz is saying. Last thing I wanted to show too. Actually, I have a couple more things to show. And we're gonna be doing a kind of live unboxing of this Opti. Let's see if we could fit it. Guys, you want internet anywhere around the world, right? They got the Starlink at SAT123.com, right? And this is a great way to get internet basically almost anywhere around the world. If you're kind of in the middle of nowhere, this is a great kind of way to get yourself high speed internet with those satellites floating in orbit. Opti, you want to continue the conversation while I unbox this?
Yeah, of course. So, Tina, this has been amazing. Let's do one more kind of conversation.
I'm having so much fun.
Yeah, you got to show them while you unbox it. Let's just talk like ideal customer. You brought it up in the beginning, but who are these products for? I know our audience probably gets it. We're seeing people in the chat basically be like,
look at how many people scan the QR
yeah,
codes.
everyone in the chat is like, wow, I actually need this. I need a Faraday bag. I'm trying to build a Bitcoin Citadel off the grid. This satellite phone might work. Someone said, I was waiting for Starlink. Now you have all of these. But are these products just for, I don't want to say, people that want to live off the grid? As you kind of mentioned earlier, these are good prep products to have for people for potential, just natural disasters here. So who would you say is the ideal customer?
Currently, everyone is an ideal customer, especially if you live in the hurricane zone, tornado zone. I mean, we've seen everything, earthquakes in California, the riots in California. We have backpacks that are Faraday and bulletproof. I mean, you see people running from line of fire on the news all the time, but with their backpacks. Wouldn't it be better if you had a backpack that was bulletproof? And that's kind of the products that we're selling. These are really nice backpacks that we designed. Here it is. Here's one of them.
Is this one bulletproof?
It is. Yeah, all of you backpacks are bulletproofs. So it's kind of nice having a bulletproof backpack and a Faraday. One of the reasons why we created the Faraday Pocket for the school kids is so that the kids can put their phone inside their Faraday so it doesn't ring during school time, but they can still have it with them where parents can reach their kids to get them the messages if they need to. And they're amazing. Plus, it keeps the radiation away from your kids' bodies. There's no reason for the phone to be in a backpack and generating radiation, EMF to your body. It's a lot better and safer to put it. There's a lot of studies that are showing that EMF is one of the biggest, one of the largest cause of cancer in young generation because they're exposed to it. We have beanies that will protect your brain and your head from EMF that you can wear when you're on a computer working, especially if you work 8 hours a day. Limit yourself. One of the things I always tell people too, one of the biggest studies, the doctors that I've listened to, is distance yourself. Don't put your phone next to your ear. A lot of thyroid cancer is on a rise because of that. 10 inches is what they're recommending. Keep the phone 10 inches away from you. And you just got to do everything you can to protect yourself. And Faraday products will block EMF, EMP, and it will block tracking 100%.
Absolutely. And this is why, again, guys, this is like the perfect store for Bitcoiners. We're seeing it in the chat. Everyone's like, oh my God, I gotta get this stuff. So yes, guys, Starlink, battery backups, satellite phones, again, the perfect kit for sovereign individuals looking to build a Bitcoin Citadel. It's a one-stop shop, and you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off. Opti, can you continue the conversation while I look for more stuff from the care package?
Okay. Actually, Tina, we did talk about it earlier, but I just love the story that you were telling us about how long you've been in Bitcoin. Actually, I really want to kind of pivot this because you did bring up the idea that you gave your employees Bitcoin with the idea of it being a 401k. And You said that was in like 2010 or what have you. Now that idea is catching on. Nico and I don't have 401ks. I know our audience, probably half of them don't have 401ks. So what made you take that decision so early? And for the people that are on the sidelines thinking these people are crazy, what would be your like 2-minute elevator pitch on that?
Right. So when I first started the company, we didn't have very much money coming in. We were only a $5 million a year company. So I couldn't do 401ks for the employees. So, and I felt really guilty. I felt really bad because, my employees, they give their heart and soul to the company. And by the way, we have the same employees as we did for nearly 20 years now. We've hired new people, but our employees are very dedicated. And I thought, I need to do something. And I knew that crypto was going to increase. And I thought, well, I can't give them, a huge, but what I could do is give them a future where they can retire. Well, and that's the reason why, I did it. Now, I had no idea that as they were getting them, as they were doubling and tripling, that they were selling them because they were so excited. And again, exception of a couple, but I should have also given them a little bit more advice not to sell. But I thought I had done a good job on that, and as it turned out, but they're still happy. A lot of them still have a lot. Some of these. Keep in mind at the time, like Ripple was only like 2 or 3 cents. So I would buy, $10,000 in Ripple and split it between 30 employees. That was a lot of Ripple at the time. Same thing with some of the other like Cardano and some of the other crypto, but most of the investment for them, it was in Bitcoin.
Amazing. I'm sure, actually, I think you said off air, one person held throughout that whole time. So I'm sure they're very happy you made that decision.
Yeah, actually 2, and both of the
two,
two
okay.
ladies, they're accounting.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So the salespeople, not so much.
So last thing I wanted to show is you could charge your battery with solar. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Not only battery packs, we got solar charging kits as well. I'm going to be doing an unboxing. This is like Christmas for me right now. I'm really enjoying this. So it's very compact. You can put this in your ballistic proof EMF backpack. And it's basically a solar array of which you can use this to charge your stuff. I think it's actually getting some charge from the lights. So this is pretty cool.
That's crazy. Blue lights.
This is pretty cool, right? Like they should be frying us right now.
Blue lights frying us.
We should be. Why don't we have an EMF? We should get an EMF beanie from SAT123 right now, bro.
Yeah, definitely need a tinfoil hat.
We're getting. No, that would make it worse.
Yeah, you do have them. We did send them to you. I want to point out on that one that you're holding. Did you know for the Starlink and the battery pack that you showed earlier and that solar panel is all you need to be able to get service for up to 2.5 hours per charge from middle of nowhere. So if you want to go camping, and I did this, I went camping for 2 weeks until it got too hot in Las Vegas. And I had this, and I had the battery that you have, and I was able to complete my work. I only work a couple hours a day, but from middle of nowhere every single day. And then the rest of the time, my battery pack was getting charged by the solar panel. But that's all you need to be able to work off the grid for as long as you want. I did it for 2 weeks in April. So it really is amazing. Now for your Starlink, I also sent you this. It's a computer bag, but it's got a Faraday in there, and you can put your Starlink, and you can put all of your electrical so that it can protect from an EMP attack. Everything will fit inside your solar, your battery pack, and your Starlink will all fit in here. Plus, this is bulletproof. not so that you can protect your Starlink, so that you can use in case you're in a line of fire, if you're in a car, if you're driving through Los Angeles. I heard some gunshot driving through Los Angeles. You can just take this and put it against the window to protect yourself. Study shows if you have anything bulletproof, if you're in a line of fire, you have a 90% higher chances of survival if you react.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's still going to hurt, but at least it's not going to penetrate, and I think that's the important part, right?
Yeah.
So guys, go to sat123.com/simply. You get 15% off if you use the promo code simply or the link in the video description. Sovereignty doesn't just come from holding your own Bitcoin private keys. Sovereignty comes in many different ways. Communication sovereignty, power sovereignty. Yeah, guys, reclaim your sovereignty. Start building your Bitcoin citadel today. Go to sat123.com/simply or simply Bitcoin too. You could use either or. And I do want to thank Tina for joining us on the show. She is the president and CEO of sat123.com. Tina, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really nice meeting you at the Bitcoin conference. That was a lot of fun.
It was a great time. It was a pleasure meeting you as well. Guys, smash the like button if you guys enjoyed today's show. Really appreciate you all. This show wouldn't be possible without all of you guys, and of course without our partners. So if you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash the like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. And of course, we'll see you guys tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Take care, everybody.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.